today's webinar using Google Analytics to track your marketing performance. My name is Matt Baer. I'm the founder of Q4Launch, and we are excited that you guys are along for the ride on this lovely fall day, coming to you from Charleston, South Carolina, where we are so blessed to be headquartered and call home. I want to welcome those of you guys that are joining us for the first time. I'm excited to see some new names on our registration list today. I know many of you find us through doing various Google searches for things we've written blogs about, and many of our longtime attendees are along for the ride with us today as well. So thanks guys for being here. Excited to talk about this topic and dive in to the task at hand. I think it's a very important topic and a very seasonal topic as we are in the season of coming to the end of 2018, which is crazy to think about. I'm sure many of you are in the throes of making holiday plans and so forth. And as you're doing that, it's also a time when we need to be reviewing our 2018 marketing performance and looking at the various key performance indicators of marketing performance, and specifically how they exist in Google Analytics, and then inferring from that data and building off of that data to build our strategy for 2019. So really excited you guys are prioritizing this call within the busyness of your own business and making time to better understand how to track your marketing performance in Google Analytics. We're going to look at some screenshots, tell you some very specific places to look for data, and then give you an opportunity to take a next step to kind of further unpack your data on a personal level. So excited to cover all those things in about 45, 50 minutes here together. We will be using the chat panel at the end of our time for questions and answers. So if you have any specific questions, feel free to drop those in the chat panel as we move throughout our time. We will jump into those at our end of our time together. And if there's anything we can do to help, my contact information is on the screen. Maybe you are watching one of our videos and you want to get in touch with us, you can do that through the contact information there on the screen. So with that, let's dive into our topic at hand today, using Google Analytics to track your marketing performance. And we're going to kind of start with a few inspirational quotes for you today, but this is one that I believe strongly in, and we talk a lot as a company about helping our customers make data-driven decisions. And this is a quote from W. Edwards Deming: "Without data, you're just another person with an opinion." And I'm sure many of you have many of those in your business, just another person with an opinion. And this is so important because we as business owners, as directors of marketing, as innkeepers, as vacation rental managers, as association executives, maybe as the director of tourism for your CVB, need to get out of the habit of making emotional decisions about the business that you lead. Because what we've found is that they're oftentimes a matter of opinion, not necessarily a matter of fact, and opinions aren't worth a whole lot. And we need to help that data, we need to allow the data to shape our opinion, even if it's contrary to what your gut says. We've definitely subscribed to the philosophy that a lot of times with an absence of data, trust your gut, that a lot of times your gut is right. But when we have data, we need to allow that to shape our decisions, and we need to make data-driven decisions. It's so important. There's probably nowhere it's more important than in your business, and letting that data drive that decision. And Google Analytics is, for many of you, the repository of that data. That needs to come together with a lot of revenue data that you have and data on your marketplace, many other sources of data you use in your decision making. But that is a great place to start from a data perspective. Another quick one here: data by itself is useless. Data is only useful if you apply it, from Todd Park. And I think this is especially relevant today because we are inundated by data. We have more data in today's day and age than we've ever had before. And if you look for statistics on how much data is being created on a daily basis, it is unbelievable how much data is being created. But I was talking to my cousin actually a few months ago. She was headed off to school and she's like, "Matt, I don't even know what to study. I want to be in marketing. I want to be in graphic design, but I don't really know what to do." And I said, "Nicole, figure out how to use data, because if you figure out how to use data in a meaningful way to drive decisions and behavior, that's where the future lies. That's where success is going to lie in the future, because we have more data than we've ever had as a business culture, but nobody really knows what to do with it. No one's really making data-driven decisions. So we want to help our customers do that as an agency. It's one of the big things we strive for. And we want to help all of you do that today by helping you get into your data, understand it a little more, because what we hear from people is they're never in their Google Analytics. because they don't understand it. And if I don't understand it, I'm not going to prioritize it. So one of my goals for today's webinar is to help you understand it, to demystify your data a little bit, and make it very easy, very tangible to understand. So some of the things we're going to talk about are going to be very basic 101 level analytics stuff. Some of it's going to get a little bit more advanced, and then we're happy to help you get a little bit more advanced as well. So it's a great first step, but you got to know what to do next. And knowing how to log in is even better. You won't believe, and many of you may be in this place, so it's okay to just laugh about it. If you are, don't beat yourself up. But how many of us have analytics set up, but we don't even know our login? And we run into that a lot, and that's okay. Like, it's okay to own that and embrace that. The point being that you're going to learn your login, and you're going to go in there, and you're going to figure out what the data means, and you're going to allow that to help you make data-driven business decisions. So really thinking through that, and now is absolutely the perfect time of year to do it. So as we think about that, there's a kind of couple key areas we really want you to analyze your data. And we say you need to do this at least monthly. So think about that. What I would tell you to do at Q4 Launch, we do this on a daily, weekly, and monthly and quarterly basis. We have different depths we go at different rhythms for all of our customers, but we also do this for ourselves. Individually, we're monitoring our own marketing performance. We have our own key performance indicators we're trying to hit, and then we come together as a marketing team on a monthly basis to review our own marketing performance and say, how's that going? So we have a lot of room for improvement in our own marketing. Don't get me wrong, we're working on that all the time, but we're in the analytics on a regular basis to be able to figure that out. So put a recurring calendar appointment on your calendar to review your analytics. It doesn't need to be long. 15, 30 minutes, you can go a long way once you know where to look. Get a glass of wine, get a beer, whatever helps you relax, and just get in the data, because you'll be surprised what insights might be hiding there. One of the things we talk about a lot, and I probably should have put the screenshot on the screen, but if you look at Google Analytics data, it actually kind of looks like a heart rate monitor or a pulse monitor. So we believe that your pulse, your analytics data represents the pulse of your business, and you need to check that pulse by looking at your website traffic. Theoretically speaking, the larger your traffic, the more traffic you have, the more that's growing, the healthier your business is going to be. Like, that is the leading indicator of success down the road. It's not that simple, right? Because quality of traffic comes into play and many other things. But we believe that pulse is part of what your website traffic is the pulse of your business. And if you look at that graphic, maybe you can go with me on that. But think about it that way and say, okay, if I want to know if my business is healthy, this is a good place for me to start. If I want to know if my future revenue is going to be in a good place, this is one of the things I need to be thinking about from a data perspective. And then understanding that sort of big level, at a high level, how am I performing? But then on a little bit more of a granular level, how am I getting that traffic? How are people finding me? And how does that compare to the previous year? So looking at organic search, email campaigns, social media, referral partners sending traffic to your site, paid advertising that you might be doing, and analyzing all those different mediums to be able to say, am I succeeding in this area? Because you could look at your Google Analytics, and actually had an analytics analysis with somebody today. And their Google organic traffic was up 12%. And was like, oh, great. Like, we think we should be feeling good. Traffic's up 12%. But as we got into that organic search data, we actually found some things that weren't good. We found some things that needed attention. And we were able to talk about an action plan to put in place to be able to say, okay, this is where you are, and don't feel bad because you and everybody else in the industry is here, but let's not stay there. Let's not stay stuck in that place. We can help you put a strategy in place to get past that. And here's somebody we've done the exact same thing for, in the exact same place. And we talk through that, and hopefully on the other end of that, you feel like you have a better strategy in place. But that comes from getting into that data, going a little bit deeper and unpacking it and understanding what might exist there and what opportunities exist to improve your overall performance. As we're doing that, we want to capitalize on the good. There's certain things we're going to learn that we want to capitalize on. So we want to see what pages are getting above average organic traffic. And now that we know that, how are we going to change our strategy? How do we get more pages performing like those pages that are working really well for us in organic search? How do we get email campaigns to perform like our best email campaign? So let's look at our analytics and say, okay, look at my email marketing campaigns I've sent out for the last quarter. Which one performed the best? Okay, it was that one I sent on August 15th. Why? Let's go back and look at that email campaign from August 15th and unpack why that campaign performed better than the one I sent on August 1st before it and better than the one I sent on September 1st after it. Let's understand why. But if we're not in the data, we're not seeing that email campaign performing well. We're not seeing that landing page performing well. we can't capitalize on the good. And this is one of the most fun parts of marketing, is to go in and see your success stories and then learn from them. And this is something I talk to our team about a lot and say, we need to learn from those success stories. In our our weekly all staff meeting, we specifically set aside time to talk about success stories we've had with customers. And one of the reasons we do is we want to celebrate our team members that have worked really hard to create those successes for their customers and pat them on the back. But one of the other important reasons for it is we want to learn from each other. I want to hear about the fact that Alex sent that email campaign and drove X amount of revenue for that customer. I want to hear about that social media strategy that Sarah put together that drove this kind of reach and this kind of clicks to the website. They spent this much time there. And I want to hear about those things, and then I want them asking each other questions about those successes that they're having and learning from each other. And that's one of the beautiful things about being able to work in a group like we do and represent a large, diverse customer base like we do, is we have this giant laboratory to test things all the time. And we talk about that too and saying, all right, that's a cool idea. Let's make a little bet on that. Let's go find one customer that's excited about that idea and test that idea with them. And if it works, we'll find 5 to test it with them. And if it works for those 5, then let's talk about rolling it out to 150 people that we do this for. But it's that laboratory environment. One, it's just fun. It's a fun place to work because you get to have those experiments on a regular basis. But 2, it just keeps things interesting for people and it drives success for the customer. So capitalize on the good, but you've got to be in your analytics to know what was good. And what blogs are ranking organically. If you're not in your analytics, you can't figure those things out either. You can't understand what blogs are working well, what blogs are performing well, and how do we capitalize on those things. Maybe you've got a blog performing well from a traffic perspective, but it's not converting well. And if without being in your analytics, you wouldn't know that. And we're going to dive a little bit deeper on all of these examples and kind of show you really how to get into them here in just a couple minutes. And then as important, if not more important, correct the bad. You know, we've got kind of an example here on the screen of a couple places we've seen customers lose dramatic amounts of referral traffic and say, hey, you know, we've lost referral traffic from this source. You need to go back to that source and say, hey, what's going on? Why is my traffic down 83% from your source? Did I let my ad expire? Is my ad designed poorly? Is your traffic down so traffic flowing to me is down? Understanding what's going on with those places and then how to right the ship. You know, and understand that becomes very, very important because every single source of traffic we have is a part of our success story. It's a part of the bookings that we're getting. It's a part of the revenue that our company is earning. And if we lose one of those sources, we either have to get it back and figure out what the problem is with it to get it back, or we have to replace it. We have to go find other traffic to replace it. And neither of those things is necessarily easy, but if you don't do either, you're going to lose revenue and lose business from it. And understanding the why, that's so important. You know, is it a mysterious slip or is there a real reason we can figure out? Did we get caught by a Google algorithm change? Did we lose an important inbound link? Is our conversion rate down? And one of the quickest ways to find this is to follow this path we've laid out for you here on the screen. By default, let me set this up a little bit. By default, Google Organic is set up to show you your best performing traffic sources, which is really good, and that's awesome. But you need to figure out what sources of traffic have you lost the most traffic from. Because you've lost traffic from them, it will probably be buried way down your list of sources of traffic. So you've got to flip the way that Google Analytics is set up. It's super easy. It takes about 3 seconds once you know how to do it. But as you're doing a regular analytics analysis of your own Google Analytics, you need to have this as part of your rhythm. And we're going to lay out several things that need to be part of your rhythm today. But part of this is going through this step. Going to Google Analytics, of course, first. Then go to Acquisition, Source, Sessions. And then at the top of when you're there, at the top of that, there's a filter that will say default, and you can switch it to absolute change. It's just above your session number, which is represented by this the second column on this screenshot, which has 13.65 at the top of it. You'll see a little drop-down box that says, it says default, and there's really only 2 options in there, default or absolute change. So you switch it to absolute change, and then if you click that little arrow that's next to your 13.65, which will be your own number, of course, in your analytics. It won't be 13.65. But if you click a little arrow right there, it will flip it from your highest performing to your least performing. And what that does is it's going to give you the sources of traffic that you have lost the most traffic from. So take a screenshot of that, follow that path, or ask us for help. But that's an important thing to look at. Where have we lost the most traffic from? If you've been on webinars with us in the past, you may have heard us talk about this and refer to it as the leaky bucket test. because what we're looking for is where is our bucket leaking? Where are we losing traffic? Not where are we gaining it, which is what we see by default in Google Analytics, but where are we losing traffic? And that's a really important thing to understand. And that's why we have to compare it year over year to be able to see how are we performing to last year. And then based on what you find comes the whole the whole strategy piece and what are you using that data to do to figure out what strategy you need to create from there. I know it's really hard to explain all that, but if you follow that path in your Google Analytics using that left-hand menu that exists there, acquisition, source, sessions, and then absolute change is not in that left-hand menu. It's above that 13.65 column. So hopefully that works for you. Again, we're here to help you do that because I know it can be a little bit confusing on how to explain that. All right, so here's some basic steps you can take today to better understand your data. If you're not in your analytics on a regular basis and you're going to be overwhelmed by the second 2/3 of my presentation today, which is okay, here's some basic steps you can take. When you're in Google Analytics, use source medium as your go-to metric. Like, you should live on that screen. Like, that's probably the easiest screen for you to understand how your analytics is performing. When you're doing that, make sure you're excluding self-referral traffic. So specifically in the B&B and the hotel space, we see a lot of customers with self-referral traffic because the booking engine exists as a third-party piece of software. So what happens is, a customer comes to your website, they go check availability or they look at your availability, and then they come back to your website. And if that's not set up properly, when they go to your booking engine and come back to your site, it will show a self-referral traffic, and it skews all of your data and it messes up your e-commerce tracking. So work with your website developer, work with your booking engine to correct that. But if you have it in there historically, you can correct it going forward. You can't get rid of it from the past, but there's a filter you can do to exclude self-referral traffic. You can also set up filters to exclude other spam traffic that might be in your Google Analytics. So exclude those things because it's going to skew your data. Always compare data year over year. And I use always a little bit loosely. We typically always want to compare year over year data to be able to remove seasonality from it, because you are, for the most part, going to always be increasing traffic from off season through shoulder season into peak season. And then you're almost always going to see traffic declining from peak season back through shoulder season, back into off season. And you live on that cycle of increasing, decreasing traffic. The more seasonal your destination is, the more dramatic that's going to be. And to solve for that, we want to use year over year data. Now, of course, there are times we want to use data week over week or month over month. So take that always a little bit usefully, but as your go-to metric, if you're just getting into really trying to understand your data, that's what you need to be thinking about, not worrying about some of the more advanced stuff you can be doing in there. You can also create your own Google Analytics dashboard or borrow one out of kind of their dashboard library. So on that left-hand menu of Google Analytics, the top of it, you'll see something called dashboard. And you can build your own analytics dashboard of the things that are most important to you, your key performance indicators, which means in the future, instead of going all these different places in Google Analytics, you can create a dashboard of all that data fed into one spot. So you go to that one dashboard and see everything at a glance. And then if you see something that looks a little out of whack, you can dive deeper into that one thing without having to hit multiple parts of your Google Analytics. And then at the very minimum, just understand what pages are performing well. However you define performance, whether that's low bounce rates or high time on site or high conversion rates into bookings, understand what pages are performing well and what you can learn from there. So that's it for you basic, like 101 level analytics users. Learn that. And then come back a month from now and listen to the recording of this webinar and everything we're going to talk about in the next 2/3 of our time together today. But to get that figured out, or let us help you get that figured out, and then dive deeper into some of these more advanced things we're going to spend the rest of our time talking about. So one of the things to think about is how many of you, as it relates, so this is kind of more specific to our vacation rental people on the call today, but how many of you are using a bookings.yourdomain.com? And I wouldn't say just a bookings.yourdomain.com, but also a blog.yourdomain.com would in a lot of ways fall under this. The bookings.yourdomain.com is specifically speaking to our Escapia users who use Escapia Web as a product. The Escapia Web is being sunsetted in May. You need to replace that product. You have to replace that product. But if you're still using a bookings.yourdomain.com, you're setting yourself up for failure in a lot of ways, some of which are listed on the screen there. And I would say the same is true if you're using a blog.yourdomain.com subdomain. You really want to get that onto yourdomain.com/whatever, and things should follow the .com/. Google sees it completely different by having all that content on a subdomain. If you're the bookings.subdomain, all your property content, all your booking content, your calendars, all that is on it. But if it's the blog dot, all of your blog content you worked so hard to create is on that subdomain, and that's leaving opportunity on the table. So whichever you are in, there are very few reasons you would want to use a subdomain like a subdomain.yourdomain.com. Google literally sees it as a separate domain associated with your main domain. So we really want to move that to a .com/. There are some reasons, and there's some customers that maybe on this call that we have set up certain subdomains for very specific reasons. So don't hear me say there's no reason you should ever do that. There are some reasons you should do that. But I think most people who have done it either have done it and they've kind of left it there. It's a legacy setup, and now there are better ways to do it as technology advances, or they were told that that was the right way to do it when it probably really wasn't for that situation. So if you find yourself in that place, if that makes sense to you, you're using a subdomain in some category, I'd highly encourage you to think differently about that as you head into 2019. Also, make sure you're using goals to track conversions. Creating a high converting website should be a top priority for you. Having a high converting website should be a top priority for you. I say that because it's so important. Almost every single customer who does business with you at some point is going to go to your website to gain information before making a decision on whether they're going to do business with you. Almost every customer. It's a huge percentage, with the small majority, or the small part that might not, being repeat customers. But it's so important, and not just creating a website to have a website. Your website is one of the most important parts of your digital marketing presence, yet it still blows my mind in today's modern age, as low cost as website development has gotten and everything else, how many people still have terrible websites. So if that's you, if you feel like heading into 2019, you're in a place with a terrible website, we'd love to talk to you, because it doesn't have to be that way. And very inexpensively and very easily, we can get you a new live site in 30 to 45 days that's beautiful and that's something that you're excited about. But there's a little bit of a soapbox about people who still have crappy websites and how much it holds their business back. But as you're setting up Google Analytics, make sure you're using goals to track conversions. At a minimum, use it to track e-commerce conversion, which we're going to talk about more in depth throughout our time together. But think about other goals. What do I want someone to do when they come to my website? Of course, I want them to make a booking. But what else do I want them to do? Do I want them to fill out my email newsletter subscription? Well, maybe. Like, that's not one we put a ton of weight on. So we don't typically track that as a big goal. But think about what else there might be. Do I want them to convert as a lead? Do I want them to search for things? Do I want, like, what behavior do I want to see on my website, and track it? And then understand the path that people get there. Understand the sources that are most commonly driving people to those end goals, and then invest more in the sources that are your top performers. And also understand the path they use to get there, the path they go through to your website. And then think about, from a optimization perspective, how can I improve that path? How can I make that easier for my user? So I said we'd talk a little bit more about e-commerce tracking, but this is so important, and we still see so many people with e-commerce tracking not set up at all, or set up incorrectly with lots of self-referral traffic coming in. You need to set up e-commerce tracking. If you're working with a web developer who did not set up e-commerce tracking for you out of the gate, you have a problem. And you need to rectify that problem. Either go to them and get them to rectify that problem, or switch providers, because that's so basic in today's modern world, that so many of your marketing decisions need to be driven by what we're seeing from an e-commerce tracking perspective. So many marketing decisions, but not all marketing decisions. Notice I didn't say all marketing decisions. One, because e-commerce tracking is not 100% of your revenue. E-commerce tracking in and of itself is not 100% accurate. So it's not even all your website revenue, but it's definitely not all your revenue, because I would bet basically everyone on this call today gets some level of bookings over the phone, either directly them calling you, or you partner with a call center, or you're a hotel group that has a central call center. Whatever the case might be, I'm sure you get some percentage of your revenue over the phone. So understand that, and use phone metrics to be able to add to your benchmark data you're getting from Google Analytics. So think about that, and also understand your conversion rate across sources, like which source mediums, and how are they converting differently, and how does that need to impact my marketing decisions. But benchmark your conversion rate for website performance as well. So you're seeing a screenshot here of a customer that's converting at 0.4%, not a website that we built, but a customer we do marketing for. And I use that one specifically to drive home the point and have the visual that 0.4% is the industry average. We do hundreds of Google Analytics analysis every year for people who aren't our customers as a complimentary service. And we have a ton of customer data. And from the people who are not our customers or people that are our customers but aren't using our website, the industry average e-commerce conversion rate that we see time and time again hovers right around 0.4%. And we see some significantly higher than that, as high as 2%, and we see some significantly lower than that. And my point isn't for you to pat yourself on the back if you're higher or feel upset if you're lower. No matter where you are on that journey, my point for you would be, let's get better. If we're at 0.4, let's get better. We're at the industry average, but let's get better. If we're at 1, good for you, let's get better. Let's think about what we need to do. What marketing decisions, what website design decisions do we need to make to drive that number higher? And at the same time, understanding that some marketing decisions you will make will actually drive that number lower because they're increasing traffic from people who are further up the booking funnel. Thinking about people in that dreaming and planning stage of their vacation process. As we grow our traffic in the dreaming and planning stage, we are going to probably drive our e-commerce conversion rate lower. If you're higher than that, it could be, if you're higher than 0.4, significantly higher, instead of patting yourself on the back, it could be you don't have enough traffic. That could be your problem. It couldn't be that you have the best website ever, although it might be. It may be that your website only has people in the booking stage, so your e-commerce conversion rate is really high, but your traffic is really low, and you need to diversify your marketing strategy. And that's where diving deeper into analytics analysis and saying, okay, I don't care where I am today. My goal is to get better, and how am I going to get there? What am I doing to get better? But if you don't have e-commerce tracking set up in the first place, you have no way to benchmark it and a difficult path to measuring how to get better. All right, so I'm going to take a break, catch my breath, give you guys' minds a time to catch up. And when I say a break, I mean like 5 seconds. Let your mind catch up, and then we're going to dive into analytics by source. So far, we've talked about some basics. We've talked about some high-level setups. Now we're going to dive in by source. Really, I just needed to take a drink of water and needed an excuse to do it. All right, so here we go. Reviewing your search engine optimization performance. First and foremost, we're going to have that conversation. And we're going to have that conversation first and foremost because our customers see roughly 40% of their traffic comes from Google organic search, and roughly 50 to 60% of their direct bookings come from Google organic search. And the reason those two numbers are out of skew is that Google organic tends to be one of the highest converting sources for our customers. So it is responsible for a larger percentage of revenue than it is traffic because it performed better than average traffic. So it's the first thing on our list because it's one of the most important sources. Really important thing to understand. So here's how we're going to get there. Is our organic traffic increasing or decreasing? Go to acquisition, all traffic, source medium. That's your path to find where we are. And then Google organic is probably going to be number 1 or number 2 on your list. Should be number 1 because it should be roughly 40% of your traffic. Again, if it's more than that, don't necessarily pat yourself on the back. It could be that your other marketing channels aren't performing as well as they should be. If it's less than that, don't necessarily feel bad. It could be that your other marketing channels are performing better than average and you need to work on Google organic. Then understand, so that's kind of going to give you a general look at how is organic traffic performing for me year to date. We've got the screenshot there. You can see this one of our customers that just started with us this year, and we're up 62%. We've gone from 65,000 visits to 106,000 visits this year just from Google organic. Awesome, super excited about that, seeing great performance there. But then how do we break that down by landing page? Because as I talked about with that example I shared earlier, you could get in there and see your traffic's up 62% from this source, like this customer is, and say, you know, sweet, I got that covered. I don't need to worry about that in 2019. I would say that's a little short-sighted because even in this customer's case, when we go into secondary dimension landing page, so you see this screenshot on the right-hand side here, and just above source medium in your Google Analytics, so just above that 62% number that you're seeing, you'll see a little drop down for secondary dimension, and you'll want to go and select landing page. Landing page exists inside of the behavior category inside of secondary dimension. So it's going to be secondary dimension, behavior, then landing page. What this is going to tell you is when people get to my site via Google Organic, what pages do they land on? Because even if your traffic is up 62% like this customer, there will still be opportunities to make certain landing pages perform better for you. So yes, our homepage is performing great. Yes, our core landing pages are performing great, but we're still going to identify, I don't care who you are or how successful you are, there will be landing pages that still need work. You are never done optimizing your site. You're never done working on it. You're never done hustling after get better every day. You're never done making data-driven decisions. There will always be landing pages that need some attention because traffic isn't where it should be, because behavior data on that's not where it should be, because e-commerce conversion rate's not where it should be on that. There's always reasons why that landing page may need to be further optimized. And as you're going into those landing pages and you're picking out places to focus your strategy, you really have to understand how your SEO strategy and conversion rates vary by landing page. And say, just because one landing page is converting at 0.4 and another is converting at 0.1 to e-commerce conversion rate, doesn't necessarily mean that the one converting at 0.1 is a terrible page and you should scrap it. It may just mean it needs some work. And understanding how to deal with that, how to create strategy from those things, is that next level of Google Analytics, right? As I said earlier, we all have tons of data. Very few of us know what to do with that data. And that's where you've got to take that data, unpack it, and figure out what that data is telling you and how to change your strategy. And knowing that it will vary by landing page. Typically, we see our customers' homepages performing as the highest quality source of traffic as measured by e-commerce conversion rate. And one of the big reasons is all of your branded search traffic, the stronger your brand, the higher your e-commerce conversion rate will be when people search for it, and the more people will be searching for it. Branded search almost exclusively lands on your homepage. So if you Google Q4Launch, you're almost always going to land on our homepage. Like that's going to be the first thing that shows up in search results. You might find some other pages. Absolutely you will. But most of that branded search traffic is going to go to the homepage. And that's more important for you in the hospitality space than it is for us, as we're tracking actual booking revenue coming through your website. But that's one of the reasons why your homepage is always going to be your highest performing source from an analytics perspective as it relates to revenue. Not always from an e-commerce tracking perspective, but most cases from an e-commerce conversion rate perspective. And then understanding how do you build out and set up those landing pages to be able to make them perform better. And if you see big gaps between landing pages that are similar, you need to try to figure that out and unpack that. Or if you see big gaps between certain landing pages that get a lot of traffic and your homepage, you need to figure that out. It's okay to see gaps, but understanding where that gap's coming from and what that might mean is going to be a really important part of that process. One of the things we see from this is that Google is ranking interior landing pages more and more. So in years past, actually we saw a pretty dramatic shift at the beginning of this year from Google perspective. In years past, more and more traffic went to the home page. If you've been on webinars for us before, you've heard us talk about the fact that we work with our customers to drive more and more traffic into interior landing pages. And you've probably heard us share the stat that 30% of our customers' organic traffic comes into their website, enters their website as tracked by the landing page on blogs. And we're going to talk more about that and how to optimize that. But that's what we're talking, that's one of the things we're talking about when we say interior landing pages. Any page that's not your home page could be an interior landing page. Interior just meaning it's further into your website, and landing page meaning they enter your website there. So knowing that, we need to be thinking about our strategy a little bit differently. And we shifted strategy earlier this year for a lot of our customers to take advantage of this, and have had a very successful year overall from an SEO perspective because of the shift we made. And at the same time, we're seeing Google send more traffic that used to go to a home page to an interior page. That's causing a lot of people's home pages traffic to be down. So if you do a Google Analytics analysis and you figure out how to look at landing pages, you go through the process I laid out for you, you might see traffic to your home pages down. And let me hear this. And when I say that is the new normal, but that doesn't mean that that's where you should stay. So for example, we saw that trend at the beginning of the year, and we said, okay, overall organic traffic is up, so that's great, but our homepage traffic is down, which is our highest converting traffic, so that's not good, but it's all shifted over here to these other pages, but it's not converting at the same rate, so how do we unpack that and understand that? So we put a strategy in place to address what Google was doing, right? We're not going to stop Google from doing what they're doing. You put a strategy in place to take advantage of that shift that we were seeing. Awesome, successful, drove revenue. At the same time, we didn't just say, well, that's a change Google made. Don't worry about it. Let's put all our eggs in that basket. We said, okay, yes, let's address that. Let's build a strategy for that. But let's also rethink how we're thinking about our homepage. And what do we need to be doing differently there so we're not losing traffic from that? And I can tell you kind of on, 10 months later, on this side of it, that was very successful for us. One, we put eggs in the landing page basket and drove greater revenue for our customers there. But two, we still went back and focused on that homepage and say, how can we make that work better? And in many cases, we're able to make changes that got that page in and of itself performing better, which in reality, we actually fed into both of those things and drove performance even higher, which if we had just sat back at that high level and saw overall Google organic traffic was up and bookings were up, we could have stopped there and called it a day and been successful, and everybody would have been happy. But we knew there was opportunity. There was more opportunity there because we went a little bit deeper in the data and developed strategies to address two things that were happening in the marketplace that were directly connected to each other, but took two different strategies to address. So I kind of touched on it a little bit there on kind of the journey we took to get there. But part of that, a lot of that connects into user flow and content strategy. And how do we need to take that into account as we're planning these things? The first step, figure out if you're in that case. Figure out if your traffic to your homepage is down, traffic to interior landing pages is up, or worse yet, traffic to both, might be down. But developing a strategy based on that data to be able to improve those things. All right, so let's talk for a minute about paid search ads. Are they working? You may have heard me quote this stat as well, but 70% of people, 70% of Google paid advertising budgets are wasted. That's a stat from WordStream. Huge percentage of budgets, 70% of budgets are wasted, which is appalling to me. But it's so true. And we consistently, as we take over AdWords accounts for customers, are able to usually either cut costs or increase traffic by getting more aggressive from a bid strategy, from a quality score perspective, and from matching landing pages altogether. So I'm going to touch on this really quick, but getting into your analytics to understand, are your paid search ads working? So a couple things we love about pay-per-click. Our customers see an average of 10 to 20 return on ad spend with pay-per-click. We love that, right? Because it's predictable. We can fluctuate budgets based on booking windows and available inventory. We love that too. Maybe we're ahead of pace, so we scale back on our AdWords. Maybe we're behind pace, so we increase AdWords. I love that it's a faucet that we can turn on and off, and that it has a predictable return on investment once it's set up and we've got some data on it. There's a couple big things we hate about pay-per-click as well. It creates zero residual value, meaning that when I get a click and they decide to book or not book, that transaction with that customer is relatively over. There is zero residual value there. It is 100% transactional, which to kind of help make that make sense, as opposed to investing in organic search where you earn your way there. When I earn my way there, I'm there. If my AdWords budget, if I turn it off at the end of the month, my organic listing is still going to be where it is. But if I turn off my AdWords budget, my ads are gone and I'm going to get 0 clicks from Google ads or Bing ads or Facebook ads or any paid search ad or any paid ads, not just paid search, but any paid ads. When my budget's over, the value's over. Very different than investing in many other things in marketing. The other thing we hate about it is it's getting increasingly competitive and expensive. Google is filtering more traffic into the OTAs away from those traditional paid ads, meaning there's less traffic available there for you to buy. And there's more people than ever buying those ads. So basic economics here, supply and demand. Demand is increasing, supply is decreasing, price is going up. That's about as basic as it gets from an economic perspective, which means you have to work harder and harder to maintain your pay-per-click ratios. And as you're thinking about 2019, if you get a significant amount of your business from Google or from Google paid ads, Bing paid ads, Facebook paid ads, any type of paid advertising, you need to plan for your budget to go up without your clicks going up. So plan for your cost per click to rise so your return on ad spend will go down. And if you're not okay with that, you have to change your strategy. And there's lots of changes you can make to your strategy by getting more aggressive with your bidding, by building a better website and getting better quality scores, building better landing pages, or by investing in other parts of your overall marketing strategy. Lots of ways to approach that, but some real high-level basics on getting into your Google ads and figuring out if they're working. So I'm going to keep moving along here. Is your blog strategy performing? Are you acquiring new travelers via your blog? And we've actually blanked out these screenshots on these blogs over here, or the actual URL name to protect the customer data. But that's the point of a blog. We hear so many people with misconceptions about blogging still in today's day and age. As competitive as content marketing has gotten, still a lot of people just don't understand the journey that content marketing needs to be on. And one of the things we're really trying to do is get in the path of travelers planning their trip to your destination when they're in that dreaming and planning stage. My wife and I were joking the other day. We were traveling somewhere, and she's like, "Can you imagine how hard it was to travel before the internet?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's why travel agents had a job." And she goes, "Oh, travel agents, I forgot they even existed." And we had a little laugh about that. But like for our parents' generation, that was it. Like you had to go to the travel agent to get that data, to get access to the travel insights. And I'm not bashing on travel agents. I've actually booked trips through travel agents. And I think that's great. They play a great role in our business. But my point is, people are going less and less to travel agents, and more they're asking Google those questions, and they're crowdsourcing that information. And when they're asking Google those questions, you need to be the person that's answering their question to be able to get in their path when they're dreaming and planning their trip and earn their business. And in this example, what I've done is I've gone to behavior, back in analytics, on that left sidebar, behavior, site content, landing pages. So those are like steps to go through in analytics: behavior, site content, landing pages. And then I've actually searched for the word blog. I know my blogs are all set up properly. They all include the /blog URL so that I can do this in Google Analytics. If your blog's not set up properly, you won't be able to see this data and gain these insights. But that's why hopefully getting it set up properly is a top priority. But what we're able to do then is go take a quick snapshot of, one, how's our blog performing year to date as a whole? And in this case, I can see traffic to my blog is up 189.7% year to date. We've gotten 52,670 travelers discovering this customer via the blogs we've created for them. That's up 18,000, up over 18,000 the year before. This customer's in they're the beginning of their third year with us, I believe. So 18,000 was our second year performance, and they were averaging about 2,000 a year before we started. So I give you that to say, like, kind of benchmarks and what we want to see from a growth perspective. But then I can go down and I can analyze this by individual customer. So I was on the phone with a customer just last week, and we were looking at some things and how do we optimize to drive greater performance. And we were doing this exact same thing, and we found, wow, this one blog has had 20,000 visits year to date. One blog for this customer, 20,000 visits year to date. That is an extreme example from a success story perspective. So don't hear that number and attach to it. But my point for that customer was, this blog is crushing it. We need to understand the consumer, the traveler that's coming to this blog, and build a strategy around that person. 20,000 people are finding this blog every day. We need to create content, packages, specials wrapped around those people to guide them down the funnel. I never would have guessed 20,000 people would have come to our website from that one blog post that we wrote for them. But now that I found that they did, and this is stuff we're doing on a regular basis for our customers, we have to go back to that blog post we wrote and re-optimize it to drive conversion specifically to those people. So creating packages, specials, properties that are near that, or helping the consumer understand how our inn or our hotel is near that, creating context to how we relate to that topic is what's really important. To shorten that path from I'm dreaming and planning, and I'm planning this trip, and I search for that activity. Now I'm on your website. How do you get me from searching for that to there? And generally speaking, I've talked about a lot of traffic, shared this customer story about 52,000 visits year to date, which I just took this screenshot yesterday. So it's on the 22nd, which I think was yesterday. Yeah, that was yesterday. So it's very up-to-date information. But we want to see customers in about the 12-month mark getting 750 visits a month to their blog. And many people aren't. Many people are not many of our customers, but many people we talk to and do analytics analysis, they'll tell me, I've come to your webinars, I've learned about blogging, but I just don't think it's working. And what I would say is, don't blame your strategy, right? Don't tell me blogging or content creation or building landing pages is a bad strategy, because I know it's not. And I can show you case study after case study to show you and tell you that it's not. Don't blame the strategy if it's not performing for you. I can go out and play golf, and you guys have maybe heard me share this analogy. I can go out and play golf, and at the end of the day, I'm probably going to shoot like a 95 because I'm really just not great at golf. But I can blame my clubs, I can blame the ball, I can blame the weather, I can blame the course. But a different golfer with the same clubs, same ball, same weather, same course would get a very different result. Golf isn't the problem. My clubs aren't the problem. The weather's not the problem. I'm the problem. I play golf like 6 to 8 times a year. So I'm not very good at it because I don't do it very often to get good at it. I love to do it, but I'm not great at it because I don't do it enough. We're great at writing content. We're great at writing blogs. So if your strategy is not performing like this, don't blame the strategy. Think about the execution of the strategy. So I want to get that out there, one, because I think a lot of people get a misconception around content creation or blogging, and they don't do it right in the first place. But we also hear a lot of competitors say it's a waste of time, it's not relevant, you don't need to do it, because they can't get it to succeed as a strategy. When in reality, the strategy is not the problem, the execution of the strategy is the problem. So blame the executor, not the strategist, and think about that a little bit differently. Step one is increasing traffic. Get that on that right path. Just like that story I shared with, wow, this blog's brought in 20,000 visits. It was already optimized for conversion, which is step two. But once we saw how much traffic it was getting, we went back and re-optimized it again to get it even closer on point for who that customer is. So step one, figure out how to blog to increase traffic to your site. Step two, figure out how to use that content to drive conversion. And I can tell you that's a journey. It's not something that happens overnight, and it's something you continually get better at. And we have 12 full-time writers on our staff, and the pursuit of get better every day within that team is incredible. And when I look at the quality we're producing today versus the quality we produced as a company 3 to 5 years ago, it's dramatically different. But that stems out of a commitment to getting better every day and testing it, test it, plan it, do it, check it, adjust it. Going through that process again, and again. Plan it, do it, check it, adjust it. So lots goes into blogging and content creation as a whole. Understanding what should be a blog post, what should be a landing page, how to create a conversion path or a conversion journey. So much goes into being successful in that area, and I got to keep moving. But email marketing is the next thing we want to talk about. It drives one of the strongest ROIs of any marketing medium. You've heard me talk about that before, but does yours? That's the question. Does your email marketing drive a strong ROI? And understanding what you're spending on email marketing versus the return on investment you're getting is important, but also understanding what messaging are you using. Are you balancing book now messaging with destination-oriented messaging, things to do-oriented messaging? Destination messaging will build your brand and guest loyalty over time, but not necessarily drive a trackable ROI. Book now or savings style messaging drives bookings and trackable ROI, but may, depending on how you do it, hurt your brand long term. So the takeaway from that is not to do one or the other. It's to do both, but find balance in how you're doing those things. And as you're looking at that, make sure you're understanding how do you track ROI and performance. So here's a story of one of our customers that drove $400,000 in direct bookings. That says last year, but this year, really, 2018 year to date via email. So 195,000 was in e-commerce bookings. We can see that in the data, but they received more bookings by phone than online. So we use that ratio to figure out, okay, apply our booking percentages, and we get $400,000 in bookings. So they've spent $9,000 on email marketing year to date and grossed $400,000 in bookings. That's a 45x ROI. So most of us would be happy with that kind of ROI. If you're not experiencing that ROI, maybe you need to get a little bit more book now and savings focused, or maybe you need to send more email, or maybe you need to grow your list. There's a lot of reasons you may not be experiencing it. And if you just look at it one way, just e-commerce bookings, you're not going to experience that ROI. You've got to factor in the phone side of those bookings. But it can be, in that case, you start getting to a place where you're estimating a little bit, and that can get difficult. But again, you're looking at source medium to understand those things. All right, next thing we want to touch on, understand the value of referring website partners. There's a lot of misconceptions about referring website partners. So to get to this place, you're going to go to acquisition, all traffic, referrals, and you're going to see your top referral sources. It's important enough that Google created a specific category for it, so you probably should be paying attention to it. This is not an area we do a lot of work with our customers as far as creating referrals, but we do help them monitor, analyze, and decide what referral sites they should be listed on. Generally speaking, traffic is on the decline from third-party referrals, CVBs, directories, etc. Generally speaking, it's on the decline. That doesn't mean it has to be, but a lot of changes Google has made it more difficult for third-party referral sites to keep up with those changes. The ones that are succeeding are the ones that are being very intentional about the investments they're making in those areas and investing in the changes that Google's making to keep up with those things, feed into those changes instead of fighting those changes. As you're monitoring referrals, and you need to be doing this regularly, you also have to understand that value goes beyond just traffic from many of these referral sites. Within your group of referral sites that you have links from, there's a lot of different reasons you're on each of those sites. Some of those sites you may be on strictly for traffic. They don't provide value beyond just traffic. But I would say in the majority of cases, they provide traffic beyond value. And if you try to group them as an OTA and say, well, I'm expecting an OTA style return on investment from this source, you're absolutely missing the boat. It's like trying to understand fine art by looking at it through blurry glasses. And that's a terrible analogy, actually, now that I just said it. But it's just not that simple. And you can't take that simple-minded approach to understanding third-party referral sites. There's so much more value created by good ones. There's SEO value from authoritative backlinks from these sites, although many third-party referral sites are stopping backlinking to people because they don't want to pass that SEO value to you. So I would encourage you to think about that as part of it. Is if they're not backlinking to you, then there's maybe not that part of that value, and that needs to be part of your decision. There's brand value by association. So there are certain referral sites that carry brand value with them. And me being listed on their site has brand value for me. So we're a member of a lot of associations within our industries. Associations like AIHP and VRMA and Historic Hotels of America and lots of these different associations within the various hospitality verticals that we work. And for us, there is brand value by association with those names. Select Registry is a big one. Lots of really important associations. And we include those brand recognitions on different parts of our sites, on different parts of our marketing collateral, because they carry value with them. So whether or not it sends me referral traffic, whether or not it sends me SEO value, whether or not I can track the fact that I got these customers from that place, there's brand value by association there. The fact that we're going to be speaking at the RMA next week creates brand value for us. It puts us on a stage and says, hey, you know, these guys know what they're doing in the vacational space. The fact that I'm going to speak at Historic Hotels of America conference 2 days later at the Broadmoor, which I'm super excited about, creates brand value for us. And the fact that we teach for a lot of Select Registry members and a lot of their webinars creates brand value for us. Goes well beyond traffic. And the same is true of your business. What brands does your business need to be showcased alongside? And there's brand value there with those associations. And then there's other value-added elements of your membership. You know what those are based on what they are, or based on which associations you're part of, but lots of other ways to quantify value. But you've got to understand they're different from OTAs and not try to assign an OTA business model to that. It's just a very different story. All right, so we've talked about a lot today. I've talked super fast to help you guys get a lot of information really, really quickly. Hopefully you've gotten some ideas on some next steps you can take, but if you're a little bit overwhelmed by this whole idea, or you just want some help taking next steps, we want to create an opportunity for you to do that. So if you'd like help doing a free Google Analytics analysis where we will make what we've talked about today become real for you, simply click yes, I'd like a free Google Analytics analysis on the poll that's popping up on your screen now. Click yes, I'd like a free Google Analytics analysis. We'll get into contact with you, schedule time, get in your actual data, and help you walk through exactly what we've gone through today, but make it real for you. And as you're watching us do that on a GoToMeeting environment, you're going to learn how to do it a little bit better than you have just watching this webinar today. So we want to make that opportunity available for you. If you don't need help doing that, simply click no thank you. That's awesome. Glad that you're an analytics pro and you don't need help. Good place. Or if you'd like to know more about our integrated marketing services, Q4Launch's integrated marketing services, please click that. Maybe you're like, wow, this is all great. I'd just rather talk to you guys. I don't have time to deal with this. And just click, I'd like to know more about Q4Launch's integrated marketing services, and we'll get in touch directly with you on that. So we need to get about 70% of people voted on today's poll. So we've put a lot of time into creating this great content for you. If you are at your computer and you haven't run away to get more coffee, wine, or maybe you're so overwhelmed you've gone straight to the hard liquor today. But if you're at your computer and could vote on this poll, That would help us keep things moving forward. As the last few people are voting in our poll today, yes, no, or I'd like to know more about Q4 Launch's integrated marketing services, now is a great time to drop your questions in the question and answer panel. If you've already responded to our poll, please drop your questions in the question and answer panel. We got a couple minutes left. We're going to dive in and answer those questions here today. If you're watching this video on a recording and you can't click on the poll, which you can't, you might try, but nothing's going to happen. If you're watching the recording, my email address will be back on the screen momentarily. You can email me and we'd be happy to schedule a free Google Analytics analysis if it's been within a little bit of time of doing this call. So can't just offer that forever for anybody just because of the time we invest in doing those. But email us and we're happy to get in touch with you. Awesome. Need a few more people to vote on today's poll so we can get that closed out. GoToWebinar likes us to get 70% engagement on these polls so we can keep things moving forward. So if you have not voted, please just vote and we will keep things moving forward. I'm reading these questions now, getting our answers together for you guys so we can get some questions answered. So last call to put your question in the chat panel and we will get that going here. Awesome. I'm going to get this poll closed out. Thank you everybody who voted. Those of you who did not are not going to be invited back. I'm just kidding. We love you guys. All right. So you have questions. We have answers. My contact information is on the screen there. If you need anything, please get in touch directly. We're going to dive into some of these questions here. Do you have an average of total visits per year for a company my size? Question from Sharon. We do. We have, because we've done so much of this, we have average visits per year for companies all sorts of different sizes. Be happy to share that with you. Sharon, in your case, I would say it's probably about 3,000 visits a month is the average. That might even be a bit on the high side. I don't know what small means to you, but that's probably on the high side. But overall, that's average. With what we see, we want to help our customers grow, even if they're small, in the 5,000 to 10,000 range. If they're not small, we want to help them grow quite a bit above that, in the anywhere from 10 to a million range per month visits. Excuse me, you asked for visits per year. I gave you visits per month. So let me clarify that. I gave you visits per month. You asked for visits per year, Sharon. So hopefully that helps. But yes, that's kind of the numbers. But no matter where you are on that journey, whether you have 50 visits a month or 500,000, we want to grow that number as long as we're staying within the quality and the right type of visitors. A couple people said they got dropped off in the middle of the webinar. Apologize if you had some technical issues. We will send out a copy of this recording to all of our registrants today. Question from Emin. How is year over dates set in analytics? Great question, Emin. In the upper right-hand corner of your analytics is a date picker. You will pick the dates kind of in the first round of dates, January 1 through usually yesterday, because today is not complete, so October 22nd. And then right below that is a compare to. You click a little checkbox, compare to, and then it will let you set a date range to compare it to. So we would just do the exact same date range but the previous year, and that will give you year over year dates to compare that to. Great question. Appreciate you asking that. I did not cover where that was found in Google Analytics. So comment from Catherine. Y'all are just great. Thank you, Catherine. You're so kind. Comment from Susan. I'm so glad I have you guys to handle all this for me. Susan, we are too. We love working with you and appreciate you trusting us with your business. This is a long question, so trying to get to the core of it here. Okay, question from Kathy. I lost one of my main referral sources, which was one of my top searches on Google Analytics, or one of my top traffic sources on Google Analytics. How do I make up for that huge gap? Do I go to an OTA and pay them their fees, or do I do something else? Kathy, that's a pretty in-depth question. There are lots of ways you can make up for that traffic source, many of which we've shared today. Just think about the things I told you to look for in your analytics and say, okay, those are marketing strategies you should be investing in. Email marketing, search engine optimization, pay-per-click marketing, social media, content creation and blogging, lots of places you could be investing. Hopefully you click yes on the Google Analytics analysis, because that's a question we'd love for you to ask us while we're doing your Google Analytics analysis, and we can help you make a decision that's more specific to your business. So generally speaking, those are places you could invest to close the gap in traffic you've lost from a referral source. But which is the right one for you is very business dependent. So That's the type of question we would love to answer, actually looking at your Google Analytics so we can make a recommendation specific to you. So if you click yes, I'd like a free Google Analytics analysis, which is always a great reason to select yes in those polls, it will help you get that information. So hopefully that was helpful for you, Kathy. I know it's a bit of a vague answer, but it's a big question, and I don't want to give you bad advice because I have incomplete data. So lots of other thanks and comments in the chat panel there. Thank you guys for that. I hope today's webinar was helpful. Stay tuned. We're going to have a whole webinar series leading up to the end of the year to help you set yourself up for success. Everything from how do I plan my marketing strategy to how do I dive deep into each of those elements of a marketing strategy. So lots more webinars coming between now and the end of the year. Please stay tuned for those. We'll be sharing lots of great content, lots of great strategies, lots of great how-to, very practical advice on how to get yourself set up for success in 2019. If you guys like today's content, if it was helpful for you in any way, we would love if you would share us a Google review. If you'd Google us and leave a review on our page, we'd love it even more if that was a 5-star review, if you loved what we had to share today. If you didn't, just keep it to yourself. It's just not nice. I'm just kidding. We also love getting webinar suggestions. So if you have any webinar suggestions, something you'd love to learn about, please email me those, and we will try to work those into our schedule. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and we will talk to you soon.